Our goal for today's webinar is to help you understand the learning that is happening in maker activities and to work together to develop strategies that you can use as you're facilitating learning in these experiences. That'll be our focus today. And we do have a couple of guests on the webinar today, some experienced professionals who are going to share with you what they've learned about working in this area. Dave Francis is an associate professor with the Utah State University Extension, and Dave has worked at Utah State since 2001, involved in a variety of 4-H STEM efforts, including the Maker Movement. Dave is one of the authors of the article that you can download in the web links pod, 4-H and the Maker Movement. So I encourage you to take some time to check out the resources in that pod and download them. Dave, do you want to take a moment to test your audio and welcome everyone to the webinar?
Hey, thanks so much. It's great to be here and look forward to talking about the Maker Movement and what we've learned so far.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Our second guest is Dallin Graham, who also works for Utah State University Extension in 4-H and is the program coordinator for the Cache Valley Makerspace, which provides STEM programs for after-school groups, summer camps, and other community outreach in Cache Valley. Dallin's going to take us on a live tour later of their makerspace. I'm looking forward to that. Do you want to check your audio one more time, Dallin, and make sure everyone can hear you?
Yes, how's that sound?
It sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
I want to start today with a poll to get some input from our audience. We want to know what you already know or think about the Maker Movement. So hopefully you can see the poll on your screen now, and you can look over this and select which of those statements are true about making. Thanks for sharing your opinion. Let's see what people think. I hope you can see the results of the poll. If you can't, type that in the chat box so I know. So it looks like we have a lot of agreement that making doesn't require a dedicated space or expensive equipment, which I'm excited to hear that because I do agree that that is true. But I also want to note that we're going to be looking today at a dedicated makerspace and see what that looks like, so that even though it doesn't require a dedicated space, there are some unique things that you can do in a space if you have something like that. So we're going to look at both what making looks like when you have a dedicated space and when you don't. Another area where there seems to be a strong agreement is that making brings together engineering, technology, and art in new ways, and it engages at-risk youth in new and creative ways. So I thank you for taking time to share your opinion on the poll, and that helps us know a little bit more about where the group is coming from and what experiences you have. So once again, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And
part about the Maker Movement is defining what actually is even Maker. And I kind of like to think of it as the old camp song, make new friends but keep the old. And the idea here is there's a lot of historic crafts and artisan work that is part of the Maker Movement. That can be food preservation and gardening and sewing and textiles and woodwork. And those are part of that traditional artisan craft world. And there's this whole other section of Maker Movement that is coming on board with laser cutters and 3D printers and wearable technology. And that's coming together. But at the root of it, whether you're sewing or you're 3D printing, it's about how do we get kids involved in making things. And that's what's the most exciting part about this, is getting the kids engaged and building their confidence and building their confidence that they feel accomplished. And what I especially love is it's an opportunity for problem solving, to say, this is what we want to make, here's the tools and the materials, how are we going to get there, and how do we process that along the way to know that we're crafting a learning experience versus just making something, and being intentional about that learning experiences that we do. And the hardest part about this is it came at us really fast. The maker movement arrived and it made a big splash, and now lots of people are interested, and the research hasn't kept up with the practice. And so now we're playing catch up to try and engage and figure out what is the promise of making, and is there really an impact to be made? And if so, what is it and how do we measure that?
Go ahead. Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing your insight, and I do want to invite our audience as well. We try to keep a very active chat going during our webinar, so I invite you to ask questions that you have for Dave or Dallin in the chat box. Let us know whether you agree with what they're sharing, or if you have experiences that support this point of view. It is very challenging to figure out what's happening in this space, and that's what we're going to be trying to work through today. So please do let us know if you have any questions. Where we're going to go next is to see what a makerspace looks like in Cache County. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Dallin. You'll have to correct me if I'm not. I will turn off my video and put you in the front and center.
Can both hear me and see me. I'll probably be switching the video around, but here I am just in my office, and I'm going to take you on a little tour of what we do at Cache Makers. And we might still have some kids here working on their projects, and I'll do my best to kind of narrate what you're seeing, and then maybe once I get back home to home base, we can ask some questions and things. But I'll just explain about generally what we do here and in the community, because we deal both with this dedicated makerspace and other things. And Dave can share more about the other efforts across Utah. So here we go. Okay, this is our computer lab where we do everything from programming to digital media design. You know, we do our 3D printing and Photoshop and video production here. Kind of a more traditional classroom, and that helps our volunteers when they are used to having someone instruct from the front. Here's some example projects of things that have been made here at the space. We've got a Lego camp going on right now. A vending machine where kids can get parts for the things they want to be making. And then this is the larger workshop space. You can see here that we have some 3D printers running. This is our little alien token machine where the kids will deposit a token to print something. Here we have different kits, whether it's Arduino, SparkFun Inventor kits, or Makey-Makeys, Lego kits, some sewing, textile supplies, vinyl cutting. Those are all the groups that have happened here in the space, whether a 1-week summer camp or a 6-week volunteer-led group during the school year. Different tools and materials that kids can be working with. Organizing all these is a big challenge. And last but not least, we have our wood shop. This is a laser cutter. We use cardboard and vinyl and acrylic plastic. Sorry, not vinyl. Cardboard and wood and acrylic plastic there. This is a CNC mill. Safety equipment, and then some more traditional wood shop tools, saws and sanders and drills. I don't even know if you guys have been hearing me. So I'm going to head back to home base and we can talk more about what we've been. Great. So Sarah was saying she liked the challenges and storing things. That is a big challenge, and we're always learning. We've been in this space for 2 years now, and you could see that many of the things were evolving, that we're figuring out how to store things and better organize them and use them. You saw some new signs perhaps of the tools and materials that we put up. We get donated materials and try to encourage people both to use them and be able to find what they're looking for. So I guess a fun little tour of a dedicated makerspace that has lots of different challenges with it. We are most likely going to be moving into a school in August and sharing our equipment and space with them, so they use it during the school day, and that complements very well our type of programming, which is primarily after school and weekend and summer. And so that will be a beneficial partnership. But we also do things out at libraries and churches and schools where we'll take, whether it's our big trailer to take laptops or soldering irons and things like that, or whether just some small equipment for smaller projects. And those are all valid, and you really have to build it around the needs of your community. We hope to be participating in the effort to bring some resources to schools to help bring some of these things to classroom teachers, and I think there's great potential there. As I was preparing some of my thoughts today, I came across this presentation from my master's advisor, Brianne Litz, who studied at Wisconsin-Madison and University of Pennsylvania. And she gives a great presentation about being less about the maker space, but really about the people and what they're doing. And so she talks about the title of this presentation is Making Spaces in Different Places. And so after this this webinar, if you want to look into some other things that others have done, I recommend that. I think Brian would be great for that. How are the different ways you use the space? I mentioned our after-school groups and summer camps, but I want to mention one other thing, and that's the open hours on Saturdays. We want kids to be able to make their own ideas come to life, and so we do schedule these. We call them 6-week cycles during the school year, where kids will come 2 hours, 1 day a week, until they work on this project that they can kind of do in a classroom setting, but a volunteer takes them all through it kind of at the same time. And summer camps are similar, where you're taking a group of kids through one experience. But we wanted to make sure that they had that opportunity and flexibility to create their own things. And so Saturdays from 10 till 4:30, any kid who's registered with us for liability can come in and make something. If they're under 12, they have to come with a parent. But all of that equipment that you see is available to them, and we have staff mentors to guide them along. But we really ask that they are self-driven in what they're doing. So they're not coming here to be babysat or entertained. We don't prepare any instruction for them. They really have to ask for that and seek those things. Sarah asked the question about how we got started. That is a great story. And perhaps I should have prepared better some videos that have already been made about that. But the basic story is that we had a couple parents who said, hey, we've got art and music and sport opportunities for our kids. Why don't we have something where they can be hands-on with STEM? They sought out a donated space, the basement of our Chamber of Commerce building. They were able to use that for free. They went and approached businesses and said, hey, could you give us some money to get some materials for this project, maybe some Lego kits, or let's get a donation of soldering irons, or even some bigger grants that helped us get a 3D printer. So they started very organically that way. Others saw what was happening and wanted to be a part of it. They said, oh yeah, I'd be a volunteer group leader once a week for a group of kids. So as we added from 1 day to 2 to 3 and then 5 days a week, we had a group meeting in that space. We thought we have something pretty good going, and we applied for a large Department of Workforce Services grant to continue it and expand it from about 50 kids to now 1,000. So we're in this new space, we have staff funding, and it's really been an awesome journey. But I really believe that if you're passionate about this, you can make it happen wherever you are, in a school, in your neighborhood, in your community or library. It's really the dedicated parents and volunteers who sustain this program, and the staff are along for the ride, and it's been great supporting them. I think I would just direct people, if they have other questions or want to see more about our story, to visit our website. Our Facebook page records the story pretty well, but we've posted most of our photos to Flickr. So go to cashmakers.org. You can see some of the events that we do now, and some of the things we've done for the past 4 years now. We started in October of 2013 and have been just 2 years in this new space.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences and taking us on that live tour through your space. That was really a great experience and something brand new for us in our Wednesday webinars, to have that sort of experience. I encourage everyone, if you have questions, to type those in the chat box, and we'll come back and have some time at the end to respond to those questions if we need to. What I want to talk about next is a framework that really zooms in on that idea of how do you recognize the learning that is happening in a makerspace, and what can you look for if you're looking for evidence of learning by makers. So here are some things that you can watch and listen for, and they come from a resource that you can download in the upper right-hand corner, Making and Tinkering Literature Review. And they've pointed out 4 different things that you can watch for, 5 different things, sorry, to help you know what learning looks like in a makerspace. The first thing to watch and listen for is engagement and active participation with reflection during the making activities. Listen for the expressions of joy or curiosity, which is what we kind of tend to focus on, but also listen for frustration, because all of those indicate that youth are engaged in what they're doing and that they have some value placed on it. Observe the amount of time they spend on their project and their level of focus. These are all indications of engagement, which is one of the first signs of learning in making activity. The second thing you want to watch for is intentionality. Are they being intentional about the purposeful pursuit of an idea or plan? It may be an evolving plan that's changing over time, but there's some intentionality. So look for evidence that they're directing themselves, that they're looking for tools or looking for resources that they need, deciding what they need to do next. Those are things that you can observe that will tell you that there's learning happening. Also, look for variations in their pathways. Even though you have a group of young people that may all be pursuing the same activity, the goal would be that everyone's project doesn't turn out the same. So look for those places where they're varying their pathways, where they're making it their own. That's another indication of intentionality on the learner's part. Innovation, very similar, the idea that they're engaging with new strategies or new ideas. You may see them expressing something new, using resources in a creative way that nobody's tried before, that they've never tried before. They may be building on ideas from other people, but look for those examples of innovation. That's really showing that they're learning and applying what they're learning. And the last thing to look for that we would like to see happening in a makerspace is solidarity, the pursuit of a shared purpose or goal with others in the makerspace. It may be other makers locally within your space, or even engaging with the larger maker movement. With that sense of solidarity as a maker, it is part of the identity development that we want to see happen as youth development professionals. So we're looking for evidence that youth are engaging and intentional about their experiences in the makerspace, that they're using the processes and products that are available to them in different ways, being innovative, and learning from one another and learning from others. So those are all ideas that can help you really unpack what it is that tells you that learning is happening in your makerspace. Now, one of the things that Dave mentioned earlier is that we're really ahead of the research in this area a little bit. So these give you a framework for looking for learning in your makerspace. But I encourage you to engage with the community and share your ideas. If you have other perspectives about what learning is going to look like in a makerspace, share those with us, because we really are hitting a moving target here of figuring out what learning looks like in making. The next thing I want to do is share some resources and some videos with you that can help you take the learning deeper. We're going to be looking at one of the skills from clickthesciencepd.org, particularly focusing on helping youth develop and expand their explanations for what they're learning and how that can be part of the making experience and an opportunity to capture those ideas of intentionality and innovation and take them deeper to encourage more learning. So as youth learn to talk about their ideas, they're developing their thinking skills, and it's preparing them to be critical thinkers and communicators in the workforce. So we're using the fact that making creates these opportunities for youth to be creative in their explorations, and creating that as an opportunity to help them reflect on their experiences and think about what it means when we don't necessarily know what they're learning, but we want to help them explain it to us and explain what they're learning. So the activity we're going to use as an example today is squishy circuits. It's a making activity that you may have seen. Opportunity for youth to learn about circuits and electricity, and also for them to develop explanations of their experience as they're going through it. So we're going to start with a video here that is actually not a Click the Science video. It's a TED Talk by Anne Marie Thomas, and she's talking about why she thinks squishy circuits are a great way to help students learn.
So I'm a huge believer in hands-on education. But you have to have the right tools. If I'm going to teach my daughter about electronics, I'm not going to give her a soldering iron. And similarly, she finds prototyping boards really frustrating for her little hands. So my wonderful student Sam and I decided to look at the most tangible thing we could think of, Play-Doh. And so we spent a summer looking at different Play-Doh recipes. And these recipes probably look really familiar to any of you who've made homemade Play-Doh. Pretty standard ingredients you probably have in your kitchen. We had two favorite recipes, one that had these ingredients, and a second that had sugar instead of salt. And they're great, we can make great little sculptures with these. But the really cool thing about them is when we put them together. You see that really salty Play-Doh? Well, it conducts electricity. And this is nothing new. It turns out that regular Play-Doh that you buy at the stores conducts electricity, and high school physics teachers have used that for years. But our homemade Play-Doh actually has half the resistance of commercial Play-Doh. And that sugar dough, well, it's 150 times more resistant to electric current than that salt dough. So what does that mean? Well, it means if you put them together, you suddenly have circuits. Circuits that the most creative, tiny little hands can build on their own. So I want to do a little demo for you. So if I take this salt dough, again, it's like the Play-Doh you probably made as kids, and I plug it in to 2 leads of a battery pack, simple battery pack. You can buy them at Radio Shack and pretty much anywhere else. We can actually then light things up. But if any of you have studied electrical engineering, we can also create a short circuit. If I push these together, the light turns off, right? The current wants to run through the Play-Doh, not through that LED. If I separate them again, I have some light. Well, now if I take that sugar dough, the sugar dough doesn't want to conduct electricity. It's like a wall to electricity. If I place that between, now all the dough is touching, but if I stick that light back in, I have light. In fact, I could even add some movement to my sculptures. If I want a spinning tail, let's grab a motor. Put some Play-Doh on it, stick it on, and we have spinning. Right? And once you have the basics, we can make a slightly more complicated circuit. We call this our sushi circuit. It's very popular with kids. I plug in again the power to it, and now I can start talking about parallel and series circuits. I can start plugging in lots of lights. Right? And we can start talking about things like electrical load. What happens if I put in lots of lights and then add a motor, right? It'll dim. We can even add microprocessors and have this as an input and create squishy sound music that we've done. You could do parallel and series circuits for kids using this. So this is all in your home kitchen. We've actually tried to turn it into an electrical engineering lab. We have a website, it's all there. These are the home recipes. We've got some videos, you can make them yourselves. And it's been really fun since we put them up to see where these have gone. We've had a mom in Utah who used them with her kids, to a science researcher in the UK, and curriculum developers in Hawaii. So I'd encourage you all to grab some Play-Doh, grab some salt, grab some sugar, and start playing. We don't usually think of our kitchen as an electrical engineering lab or little kids as circuit designers, but maybe we should. Have fun. Thank you.
So I love the video. I love that she starts out with the assumption that I want to teach my daughter about circuits and goes from there. So Sarah's already used this activity. Maybe some of the rest of you have too. What opportunities do you see in the Squishy Circuits activity for helping develop explanations? Can you share some ideas in the chat pod about how this particular activity with the Play-Doh and LEDs gives you opportunities to develop explanations? I'll pause for a minute and give you a chance to talk. So we've got an activity that provides an opportunity for some hands-on experiences around electricity and circuitry. What would staff need to know or be able to do to facilitate this activity, or how would you help them prepare for this? Do staff need to know what's going on here before they lead this activity? What are your thoughts on that? This activity. I can really see arguments for both sides of that it's helpful to have a strong background, or that it can be challenging. One of the things that Dave notes is that one of the challenges with doing this activity as a making activity is to help volunteers understand they don't need to provide explanations, that the learning is happening through the exploration They don't need to be told what's happening here. We're going to look at an example of how this activity is facilitated in an after-school program where the staff do have a strong understanding of the content here, and they're really focusing on helping youth connect to their prior knowledge about electricity and their experiences that they've had with it in their everyday life. But I also think that there's some examples of here of the first part of developing an explanation. So watch as Laura and Kelly facilitate this activity with a group of girls, and as they develop the words to explain what is happening to the electricity in their circuit. So we're going to watch this video from the Click to Science website, and there's a link down here, what do you know about circuits, in the lower right-hand corner if you want to see this video again later. Pay attention to what the staff are doing here, and be ready to tell us your opinion on what they could do next to really facilitate explanations here.
Have you heard of the word circuit before?
It goes in a circle.
It goes in a circle, so we know it's something that maybe has to flow in a circle.
A TV circuit.
A TV circuit. Can anyone think of anything maybe that associates with what Hannah's saying? A TV circuit.
Like when you plug something in a circuit.
Oh, so when you plug something in, that has something to do with the circuit.
Watch as frontline staff connect youth to learning about circuits. Staff guide youth in thinking more about circuits and link it to real-life examples. Working together in teams, staff provide context to what youth are learning.
Some things conduct electricity, and some things use this word. Think about insulate as stopping. And when we do it, it's going to stop the electricity from moving. I want to hear a buzzer here.
Let's try.
Okay, now are they touching again? So you might want to put some insulation in there. Okay. Push those dough balls back together. See what happens.
It goes off.
It goes off, doesn't it? Let's look at where the electricity's coming from. Right over here, right? The batteries? Okay, and the wire. No, what does it do?
It goes through.
It goes through the dough. It keeps going this way. It goes in a circle.
It is in a circle.
It is in a circle, yeah. When you push these together, where does the electricity want to go?
Out.
Yeah, it's going to jump. It's going to try and go through here, and it's called a short circuit. You ever heard that? A short circuit?
Yeah.
That's
it's
very
when,
dangerous.
It's when like something does not work.
Really, focusing on developing explanations is not the point that the staff were focusing on here, but I see it happening in the video, and I was wondering what your thoughts are. What do you see happening here? What could you do next to help youth continue to develop their explanations? We'll mention about how you really focus on the learning in this tinkering activity. So it is hands-on, but that's not really what makes it a good learning activity. What's happening here that really is encouraging learning is you're dealing with the scientific phenomena in an observable way. The children can make changes, they can make mistakes, they can observe what's happening, and they can correct it. So it gives them a chance to get feedback very quickly about what's working and not working, so they're learning from that experience. It's not just that it's hands-on, but it's hands-on in a way that they can experiment with the phenomena, observe it, and learn from that experience. So the fact that it's observable and that they can make changes quickly is part of what makes this a good learning experience. One of the things that Dave pointed out is that they introduce the vocabulary. They try to introduce it in a way that it connects to the experiences that the children have as learners in the world, and then they use that vocabulary during the activity. She talks about conducting and insulating, and the girls become comfortable using those words. Another point I saw that really I think builds on the learning here is she did a very informal diagram of what was happening to help them, again, take what they're observing and communicate it to put it in writing in that diagram and to be able to talk about it and communicate with each other about what's happening. I would love to see if that is followed up with the girls creating their own diagrams or using diagrams to communicate with the other about what's happening. She gave them prompts to try different things, but she didn't tell them what was why it was working or why it wasn't working. So she pointed out that she pulled their attention to what she wanted them to observe and pay attention to, but she didn't do a lot of direct instruction. And that's really what we want to see in this type of activity, that we're facilitating it in a way that that children can learn from their experiences and observations. They're not being told what's working and what's not working, but the staff are helping them build the vocabulary, the skills to communicate about it. Our next step is to think about what do we do to implement these ideas? How do we create our own maker spaces? And these are some resources that, I forgot to put the source on here. These are from the Tinkering STEM Education resource that you can download in the upper right-hand corner. So some steps on how you create activities that create opportunities for learning from making. Doesn't have to be a dedicated maker space, but it can be. But how do you create those opportunities for learning? And then we're going to come back here with Dave and Dallin to share if they have any additional ideas that they want to incorporate about how to get started in implementing this, or if you have any questions for them, you can share those in the chat pod. So Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So first off, I love that you picked squishy circuits, because that was one of our first maker activities we did. And at times, the more experienced maker people will tell you, oh, squishy circuits, I've seen that, I've done that. But if you're a new maker program, that's where you need to start. And let them explore, and don't get concerned that, oh, everybody's done this. Well, it's new to you, and it's probably new to the kids you work with. So start small with something like squishy circuits that's affordable and accessible, and then go on from there. That's the biggest thing. Is when I look at Dallin's program, I remember when they started really small, and they didn't have lots of fancy stuff, but they had a vision and they had some passionate volunteers. So I would say definitely start small, and then build up to that activity, and kind of manage your expectations of what your maker projects will look like. I strongly believe it's harder to manage, but allowing kids as many options for their own creation as possible, that's huge. And so on a small scale, for example, one of our early maker efforts was stomp rockets with 2-liter bottles. Having different colors of duct tape and different types of pipe and options, that allowed kids to customize their own experience within creating a successful maker project. We didn't all craft everything step by step didactically and have the finished product that was important. So I did like that idea of allowing them. And then where we kind of took that to the extreme by asking kids, within reason, what do you want to make this week at Maker Camp? And allowed them to come up with some ideas that we kind of had a starter list of projects and kids. So you have one kid making a wood bench, you have one kid making an iPod, this is going to date me, an iPod speaker, back in the day when iPods were a thing, and having those kids work on their own projects, that are really allowed for opportunity to have kids feel like I am a maker and I'm with a bunch of other kids that are making their projects, and we're all going to be successful. And the last piece I want to emphasize is showcase. It doesn't have to be a traditional county fair or a maker fair, but show off and allow kids to share what they've done by showcasing. And that's an opportunity also for further collaboration, because one kid will say, wow, you did that, how did you do that? And it's an opportunity for that kid to share again, this is the tool I used, or this is the technique, and they learn from each other. But allow that showcase without any kind of judging or ribbons, but just a sheer show off what you were able to accomplish and celebrate that. That's the biggest thing of these maker experiences.
I love that you included that idea about showcase. That is, I think, a very critical part of what makes it a maker experience. And it doesn't have to be judged. It shouldn't be judged, but it's a chance to show what you've created. Dallin, I want to give you a chance if you had anything else you wanted to share before we finish up today.
Thank you. Yeah, as we went over this activity, I was reminded of some of the different things that we've done here, and we've really had the full spectrum. We've done activities that cost thousands of dollars just for one group. For example, we prepared a small satellite, CubeSat or ArduSat type box that a group of girls sent up to about 115,000 feet in a helium balloon, and tracked that with radio until it popped and fell down. We launched it from Utah and it fell in Wyoming. And they built these antennas to track it down with, and hiked it and hiked in to pick it up and analyze the data. But we've also done activities where we just bring out cardboard, and the kids made these. It was kind of like Pinewood Derby, but with cardboard cars, and they designed their own track. And it was much more tape and scissors, and but still giving these kids the opportunity to design something, and that reflection piece that you have all alluded to. They're still given that opportunity to look at what they made and improve it. So in different iterations, some of that was technical language, but some was just learning about gravity or velocity or resistance. And there's always ways that you can celebrate success with those. So whatever level you're at or point you're at in making, just jump in there. There are some resources I posted, makercamp.com, instructables.com. You can see some of the previous projects we've done at learn.cashmakers.org. And there's really a growing community of these folks. I think Sarah mentioned Science Buddies. I was just looking into that a minute ago. They have these K-12 Google groups for maker educators. And so connect with other people doing these kinds of things, and across the country and even across the world, we can share our ideas together and help improve these projects.
Thank you so much. So there are some great resources that Dallin has shared in the chat pod, and Sarah has as well. And there's web links at the bottom of the page, and files you can download at the top of the page. All of these things. I want to thank you for joining us today and invite you to connect with us on Twitter or Facebook or Pinterest between now and the next webinar, or drop us an email if you have any questions. We sure do appreciate all your input and the great expertise that Dave and Dallin brought to the webinar today. That's been very helpful.